Born under the cover of night and illuminated by a blood-red moon, our hero came into this world, protected by thousands of evil spirits and creatures that live in every dark corner of our planet. And this heavenly blessing, which has no prohibitions, also carries the enormous pain that evil spirits inflict on people and living beings. They have been with Xiaoyu since birth. He suffered, constantly feeling their presence. All his life he was humiliated, but despite this, he is the only one among the demons who has a bride. And this was extremely confusing to him. And now 4 of them were now in his yard. Xiaoyu must decide which of them he should marry. Among them is a super popular celebrity with a world name. A girl who constantly appears on the covers of magazines and TV shows. The president who manages 10 of the most profitable companies in the world and is set as an example for every aspiring businessman. A beautiful and pretty manageress of one of the most famous bars, who beckons. Well, in the end, she is the most brilliant scientist, whose insightful eyes solved more than one secret that was beyond the control of our science. And when he chooses one of them, the other 3 must die. These are the terms of the contract. He constantly wondered how he should choose and whether he could save someone. Or maybe he can choose one girl from his memories. Every moment drove him into even deeper thoughts, because he did not want any of them to disappear forever. Our hero has never enjoyed a heavenly blessing, because there are no prohibitions for spirits and they cannot be touched by the soul. Although their blessing is their goodwill, yet even their goodwill does not mean anything good for men. If it were not for the blessing of these evil spirits, our hero would hardly have survived, because his parents appealed to all known and unknown spirits. And in the end they heard their prayers and became sacrifices to the spirits. That is why Xiaoyu never saw your parents and was raised by your grandfather. He was also one of the reasons why Xiaoyu survived, because the grandfather was extremely wise and saved his grandson in every possible way. Many times he wanted to die, because the so-called blessing of the spirits only made him suffer. Our hero was blind, deprived of the ability to hear tastes and smells, and his touch was also taken away. The creature's evil spirits only left me with the ability to hear and speak, but instead took away everything else, and also took away the ability to move one leg, so Xiaoyu began to limp. Everyone in the village was indifferent to him, because he was just a barely alive cripple. His peers laughed and mocked him because he was unable to fight back and was not like the rest. They insulted him in every way, called him a freak, a cripple, blind. Children threw stones at Xiaoyu and shouted insults. They told him to get out of here because he didn't belong among people. They told him to return home and poked him with their fingers. He heard one of the children shout that Xiaoyu are a bad person, because his parents abandoned him after he was born. Our hero was angry with those children, a thin trickle of blood flowed from the wound, but he did not say anything to them. He silently turned and limped on his way and ignored those cruel children. Xiaoyu stepped, and after him there were bloody traces. Suddenly, a spirit began to appear out of nowhere, sparking and trying to take its form. Everything around crackled and sparkled with red colors. The spirit was truly terrifying. Many red evil eyes, even more razor-sharp eyes, wanted only one thing, to destroy people. He grunted and turned to the children, smelling them. He looked at the children and felt their fear, then turned to Xiaoyu and said that he is pathetic and is nothing more than a pet for the spirits, and that is why the spirits do not want someone offended you. The spirit shouted that it knew our hero could hear it and that only could you will say, then the spirit will kill these cowardly people, and advised not to hold back. Our hero stood and listened as the spirit told him that he should gain respect for himself, and not be at the bottom of society, because that would only make him suffer. During the time that the spirit was telling this, the children had time to run away and shouted that they will always remember this meeting and will always be afraid of the demon woman. The girl who stood in front of him and shouted that anyone who offends Xiaoyu will pay, and she will beat them until their mothers cannot recognize them. She hugged him, put her hand on his shoulder, and he whispered thanks to this strange girl. In response, she said that it was time to say goodbye and she was leaving him. Xiaoyu stood silently and could not say anything. A light wind was blowing him, and that was all that broke the complete silence. The girl began to disappear and said that they would see each other again and that this would not be their last meeting, and also added that Xiaoyu are the most well-mannered person she has ever seen. At the last moment, she turned around and said, "Mothers tell girls not to be like her, so when they meet again, she will change and be just as well-bred as Xiaoyu." He did not hear the last phrase, because the girl disappeared. Our hero was lying in his bed and immersed in his own thoughts. The sun was shining very brightly, which meant that he had been lying down for a long time. Who is this girl? Our hero thought. He hoped to find at least some memory related to her in his head, but it was all in vain. Suddenly, the silence and his thoughts were interrupted by a scream. The voice asked why he was still lying in bed and not getting up. Xiaoyu said he would get up now and told Grandpa not to worry about it. Grandpa entered his room and our hero calmed the grandfather and said that he got up very early. And he thought that there is no person who would get up earlier than his grandfather and read Feng's book Shui and fortune-telling. And if someone could get up so early, then could they work normally after that? The grandfather got angry and asked his grandson why he despised his profession and said that if it wasn't for her, then Xiaoyu would have died a long time ago. The boy looked out into the street and said that he knew everything well and thanked his grandfather once again. And grandfather asked if they would go for a walk today, because today is a good day, and also said that Xia would help you get dressed. He also added that he wanted to tell him something. Xiaoyu smiled and asked if Grandpa wanted to send a love letter or invite Grandma Zhao to the dance. And then laughed and said that they are too poor to afford entertainment, because when Xiaoyu said that he would bring his wife, then the grandfather forbade him and told him to remain a lover or something like that. The grandfather ignored it and told his grandson to make sure he had a blindfold on and didn't forget his crutch. He also added that he almost died because of them, and he reminded Xia of this 800 times and he constantly forgets about it. And also asked that no one know that Xiaoyu are cured. The guy closed his eyes and said that next time he would be much more careful and it wouldn't happen again. And also asked if anyone besides grandmothers would come to their store. He began to blindfold him and said that the grandfather had been tricked and that it was very inconvenient to use a bandage with crutches. And also whispered that he is slowly dying. Grandfather did not understand what he said and asked to repeat. Rage began to grow in his voice. The grandfather came out of the shadows and his face was angry. He repeated what Xia said. He was clearly not happy with this phrase. The guy immediately decided to turn everything into a joke and said that if the grandfather has any wishes, then he should definitely voice them. And the grandfather said that no one jokes with him. Reached out and said that he was not satisfied that Xiaoyu never learned to divine and do not see the obvious. The boy did not understand anything and asked the old man to explain what the hell is going on and to explain it right now. And the grandfather explained that he knew in advance that such a thing would come soon, but he did not know exactly when. And that's why he warned Xia earlier, you don't cry if one day it doesn't happen. The grandfather asked his grandson not to make such a sad face. He also added that he is still alive, so there is no reason to be sad. And said he would give some advice for Xiaoyu, and began to tell that as Xiaoyu know, immediately after his birth he was blessed by spirits, but immediately after birth they wanted to take the boy to the afterlife. Xia continued the story. You said that thanks to his grandfather he was saved and 5 marriage contracts were concluded, and therefore the blessing was divided into 5 parts. And thanks to this Xiaoyu recovered and ceased to be disabled. But the grandfather said that this is not the whole story that he knows, but has a continuation. He said that each of these girls had a young destiny Sha. This means that each of them is doomed to extraordinary rapid success, but at the same time to a rapid premature death. So if Xiaoyu will not choose one of these 5 girls, in the end you will not die, but you will become disabled forever, because the fake defects will gain strength. The guy thought that it was a fiction, so he asked his grandfather if it was really that important, because he thought that all these marriage contracts were choosing Xiaoyu. The grandfather said that the others did not know the whole situation, but asked if the boy also did not know anything, and then said that the marriage contract was important, because his blessing only works on his own people. Xiaoyu asked why then he still needs to pretend to be disabled. Not only to deceive everyone. Is there some other purpose he doesn't know about? The grandfather replied that he was deceiving him. He said that they are all pervasive, so how can you hide it from them? It's just to hide it from the eyes of the world. Also it was alone with requirements evil spirits, because Xiaoyu saved the lives of those girls. If not for the blessing, these girls would have died young. Since Xiaoyu are their savior, if they refuse to follow the contract because he is disabled, it is definitely not a good match. The boy did not understand why it was so difficult to act, because everything can be done much easier, because their family is very poor and no one could harm them. The boy frowned and said that if he chose one of them, the other 4 would die. Grandfather looked into the distance and said that those women have survived to this day because of their marriage contract. If they break the contract, they will naturally have to return what they got. and also added that now he wants to discuss a few things about his funeral. The men said that he will be going out today, and if he does not come back tonight, then there is no need to continue any marriage, and there is no need to pretend to be disabled. See, you can live life as you want. The second thing which underscore grandfather wanted say it was that if it's a coffin that comes back, it's business as usual. And he also added that 3 days later someone will come to bury him. Remember not to talk to those people, let alone them know that you can see them. The grandfather frowned and said that if he eventually returned home, he would have to be neutralized, because the grandfather would no longer be a grandfather. The boy did not understand what this phrase of his meant, and also asked what will happen if grandfather does not go anywhere today. The men replied that there are some things the boy can't hide away from. As long as he does what grandpa says, they will see each other again one day. The boy was happy and said that it was great that his grandfather would not die, but would see him. And he said that he believed that it would be so, because his grandfather was a disciple of the Heavenly Master. Grandfather looked in his direction but said nothing. The grandfather said enough and asked his grandson to remember every word that was said before. It began to rain, and the grandfather said that there was no need to memorize the next sentence, because what he wants to say is, everything that you have gone through. After all, said grandfather, everything is only grandfather's fault. He left, slowly disappearing into the cold rain. Xiaoyu wanted to stop him, but some force prevented him from doing so. The guy was returning to a lonely apartment in the middle of the night. The moon cast a large shadow from the boy. A red moon meant that something bad had happened. Xiaoyu looked at the coffin and barely held back tears, but his grandfather asked him not to cry, so he tried his best to keep this promise. It was a new day, and people were standing in front of Xia's residence and talked about whether the old Xia has gone to another world. One woman said that she had heard that he had passed on to another world last night and that he was a wonderful man, the likes of which the world had never seen. And also added that he left the blind boy himself. Another woman asked her to shut up because Xiaoyu could hear them. And the boy sat and remembered his grandfather on his knees. The robbers came up and began to laugh that the old man had finally left, and only a clumsy cripple who could do nothing remained. One of them started to say something, but there was a roar that shook the ground. A cloud of dust fell on the robbers, it clogged their mouths, and they could not understand why an elite car appeared here. Everyone poked their fingers in surprise at the unusual for their place's transport. She asked the security guard to give some money to the crowd so they wouldn't look at her less, to which the security guard said he would do anything. The girl said that she did not know what her father was thinking, but he would never break off the engagement. And that's why the girl asked Xia's conditions you to be able to redeem yourself from your fate. The boy didn't come back to her, but said that if his grandfather and her father were getting engaged, why shouldn't she talk to her father first and then talk to Xiaoyu? She looked at him with contempt and said that if her father had agreed to speak, she would not have even looked in the direction of the cripple, because he was not worthy of her. Xiaoyu asked why she was implying that he should talk to her father, because her request seems unrealistic. The girl was offended and said that she was asking Xiaoyu put forward your conditions. And she added that she would not want to marry a blind man, but grandfather Xiaoyu deceived her father, because he would not agree to such a step. The guy said that it's not that he doesn't want to break off the engagement. Suddenly, new elite cars burst into the yard, the ground rumbled, a whole sandstorm was rising behind them. A girl in a strict expensive suit began to appear next. Her shoes sparkled in the sun. It was Yu Yenran. She said that her father had once received a great favor from an elder Xia, so now she has to pay back her father's debt and wants to honor the elder Xia. Her language is very good and verified. Lin appeared next to Yaju. She also said that before she died, her father told her to pay back the Xia family's debt. After she pays her respects to his grandfather, they can discuss their case. She leaned towards Xiaoyu. She exuded beautiful perfume and grace. Next was a silent genius who exuded seriousness. Her features were remarkably beautiful for someone who had spent most of her life in a laboratory. Her name was Bai Ran. The girl always wore her favorite white coat and badge, so that at any moment she could return to her daily routine. Suddenly, our hero heard a voice that was interesting to him and turned his head in his direction. The girl called him brother and waved her pen sweetly. She hadn't seen him in a long time. He was surprised and could not find words. Just kept silent. His eyes widened under the bandage and finally he could understand who it was. He asked if it was really Tomboy. Meanwhile, the memorial procession continued. The candle was burning, the smell filled the room. Everyone wanted to see grandfather Xie on his last journey. The girl sat on her knees and prayed. She asked for peace for her husband. She closed her eyes and said that she would be able to take care of brother Xie. She also added that no one would offend him and she would do everything for his safety. The rest of the girls stood next to the memorial place and prayed, paid their last respects. Each of them had something to say. She replied that she should not do this, because she does not know this man. Mu Ling can give enough money for them to live happily ever after. Xie Yu said that she is not really what she seems. She's like a tsundere with a hint of kindness and that's why he doesn't know what to do. She got angry and asked why he considered her a tsundere. Suddenly Bai Ranran turned around, walked away with a quick step and said that she was leaving them. The boy said that he understood why people did not want to marry a blind cripple. Meanwhile, Yu Yanran said that even if none of them wanted to marry him, he had a pretty good chance. She gave Xie Yu number and said to call her in case of anything. Even if he wants to restore his sight and ability to walk. Xie Yu said that just a minute ago she was doing the same thing. She did not expect this phrase. She said she did it on purpose. And in fact, it is better not to contact her, because she can hurt a lot. Yu Yanran said, this is not an attempt to break up the marriage. She stood motionless. She looked at our hero and said that although she was offended that her parents decided whom to marry for her, it would not be good for her, our hero and everyone else to refuse it. Therefore, she is not ready to give up yet. She also said that marriage is a difficult thing and therefore it is necessary to spend some time getting to know each other and then decide. Xie instead Yu said he thinks she just wants to lure him into giving him a lot of money and then ask him to end the marriage. Mu Ling changes her face very quickly and he waits for her to offer him a deal again, which is also essentially charity. The girl replied that if she spends money to solve it, she is doing charity, and if she doesn't spend money, she is stingy. He can't take the charity, but he can cheat the stingy. Suddenly, Lin came up. Yaju came very close and said that she is not here to break the engagement and she is ready to get married. Also, she would like everything to be official. Lin Yaju called her a little and sweet sister. The owner of the bar was shocked by these words. She gave Xie Yu business card and told me to call in case of anything. And at the end of Lin Yaju added that although he could not see her, he could smell her. Our hero turned to her and said that they are giving him business cards, but he is blind and will not be able to read them, and he will have problems with his phone because he will not be able to call anyone. The boy stood and was silent. The girl gave him a phone with her number written on it and said that he could only call her. With the phone in her hands, she assured our hero that she would write down all the numbers from the business cards in his phone, and also add her personal phone number. At first the girl smiled. But the next moment the smile disappeared and she became serious. And the girl looked at our hero and wanted to say something, but did not. She was interrupted by a phone call with something very important. She started running out of the apartment and said that there was no time to be with Xie right now because she has urgent matters that she needs to deal with immediately. Instead, our hero replied that her affairs were more important than himself, because he would not run away, as he had not run away before. And Xie Yu replied that everyone has the right to secrets and if she is so interested, she can ask her personally. She also added that she is not at all suitable for a boy. And in general, she was troubled by the fact that if she gave money for Xie Yu, then other girls will appear and want to be with him because of money. The girl sharply replied that if she talks to him, it doesn't mean anything, and what's more, she just feels sorry for the guy, that's why they still communicate. He kept silent, it was inappropriate to answer this phrase. Meanwhile, she rolled her eyes and said that his gift was not nice and she didn't want it. In the end, she took the pendant and said that he did not understand anything, because girls should be asked to collect gifts, and not just give up. The guy said that he heard it 5 times already and now he will remember it for sure forever. Suddenly she stopped and turned around. Xie Yu frowned and said that the amulet should be worn at all times because it is very useful even though it is not attractive. She looked at him askance, but she agreed. The girl got into the car and breathed a sigh of relief. The woman sitting in the first seat asked if the blind man was her fiancé. The girl smiled slightly. She clutched the amulet in her hands and said that only she could call him blind and crippled. And no one else. The woman was worried when she heard these words and firmly said that he was not up to her status and there could be no engagement, because it would destroy her career. Suddenly she relaxed her hand for a moment. The ornament fell to the floor, and the girl cried out in surprise. The girl looked somewhere in the distance and said that although she does not like our hero, she must return the debt that she has to pay. The Xie family never asked for anything, although she did a lot of good. She blushed and said that she called him that because she was afraid that he would fall in love with her, which would ultimately bring Xie our only pain and disappointment. Night came, the yard was as quiet as on the night when grandfather died. Xie sat and prayed, addressing the grandfather. He said that after seeing all 5 girls, he is ready to save them, because they all deserve it. Each of them brings good. He looked at the portrait of his grandfather and seemed to be waiting for an answer. Xie looked at the image of the grandfather again and asked how he can save them if he cannot tell the truth about himself. Suddenly, behind him, our hero heard scratching and sounds coming from somewhere. They called him. These sounds were very similar to his grandfather's voice. The boy remembered his grandfather's words that if he came back, he would not be the same grandfather he was before. And so, our hero had to act. Xie looked at the door. There was silence and he went forward. Approaching the door, the sounds intensified and blows began to come from inside. Xie mentioned that people knock 3 times. Ghosts 4 times, and the spirits of the dead cannot open the door. He tried to remember how many times they knocked. He was standing at the door and heard piercing pleas to open the door. There was a red light that did not bode well. The voices asked to open and promised that Xie would you will see your grandfather. The boy gathered his spirit and went forward. He raised his hand to the door handle and hesitated. In the next second, he began to open the mysterious door. Voices began to shout and cheer, beckoning him inside. When the door was open enough, the spirits cried out that it was extremely easy to control. Their laughter could be heard from all corners. He took the first step inside and saw a terrible picture in front of him. The giant monsters stared at him, their eyes full of rage and madness. Of all shapes and sizes, there were dozens and hundreds of them, and each of them did not look good. A little further away from everyone stood a lonely figure that stood out against the background of the others. This figure was his grandfather, who now did not look the same as before. He turned to his grandson. He called him to go with his grandfather in this gloomy world. The compass showed the presence of hundreds of spirits, which had practically not happened for hundreds of years. This caused great concern. The president of the organization stood gloomy and could not understand how it happened. At his request, one of the servants who was waiting for orders from the manager approached. He became very gloomy and ordered to call all the deacons and investigate the place of appearance of all the spirits that appeared in our world this night. Meanwhile, our hero walked among the spirits to meet his grandfather. He had heard about such things from his grandfather, but he could not have imagined that he would see so many evil spirits in person. And among them was dear grandfather. And he had to kill this creature that now resembled his grandfather at all costs. Xie's desire you destroy all spirits. He laughed because he considered our hero weak and defenseless. The spirit lengthened its long body and now seemed gigantic. Xie replied that if he leaves, the monster's death will be painless, because he wants to know what happened to his grandfather. He stepped closer to the creature, which gave a piercing laugh. Xie assessed the spirit, his gaze was cold and still. The creature said it was not afraid of him because he was a mere mortal. There is nothing that can threaten him, all mortals are weak. Our hero realized that he would not wait for answers to his questions. He also added that he is not a rival for the spirit. Even departments of Taoism Alliance will be powerless. However, Xie, you can also surprise evil spirits with your skills. The monsters rushed at him. They are ready to destroy our hero. A beam of immense power cut through the sky, scattering monsters in all directions. None of them managed to strike our hero. The power contained in Xie's staff was gigantic and destroyed monsters one by one. The power cut through the monsters, poured out of his staff and continued to destroy the evil forces. It grew and grew, gaining momentum. The staff sparked and ripped out new streams of energy, and from the streams emerged that finally everyone would know this power. Energy burst out and destroyed everything around, forming something new and unseen until now. The creature stood behind our hero, and he was full of determination and ready for battle. From now on, you can fight, thought Xiaoyu. The spirit bent down from the blows, as if it was ready to fall. However, it was still far from that. He could not understand where the boy had so much strength. The spirit looked at our hero and at that creature and could not understand what was happening around. He cried out like a celestial master mansion could allow their existence. The creature stood silently and only hissed. At the same moment, a lightning attack made the spirit afraid for the first time in its life. He was not prepared for such an instantaneous speed of impact, and in a second everything was finished forever. He was worried because he thought that the compass had broken, which meant very bad events. But in the end it was impossible, because the compass had not broken in the last hundreds of years. But another question arose: who could stop the invasion of hundreds of spirits in one moment? The morning came and our hero was sitting at the entrance to his house. The sun warmed his back. He thought that everything happened as his grandfather told him. About spirits and the fact that someone will come to bury him. And therefore the words that one day they will definitely see each other will come true. Suddenly he heard something approaching. He quickly started blindfolding. The robbers behind him began to mock him. They entered the house. And this did not bode well. They said that the old man died, but that doesn't mean they don't have to pay for the security, so they demanded their pay. They laughed that now there is no one to take care of the invalid, so now they take care of him. They wanted to take all the money that grandfather had left for Xiaoyu. Suddenly, our hero heard a hiss behind him. A voice whispered that it wanted to kill those people because they deserved it. The voice gained strength, wrapped around our hero from top to bottom. The power grew and was more and more. The voice couldn't understand how such miserable people could exist in the same world as Xiaoyu. Our hero could not stand it and screamed. The voice asked to close its mouth. The two robbers fell silent in surprise, because they did not expect such a display of character from a blind boy. They didn't understand who he was addressing. Xiaoyu shouted that don't think that he begging their once is equivalent to acknowledging their all. He shouted that he was a man and proud of it. Eventually he called out to the creature. The creature fell silent and watched him silently. At the same moment, the robbers rushed to Xiaoyu, because he offended them by calling them names. The thin one stared at him, took him by the collar and asked who gave him permission to speak to them like that. His eyes were full of rage and hatred. The guy began to make excuses that he didn't want to say anything bad and it all happened by accident. A car stopped behind. The robber said that now Xiaoyu will feel his fist on you. Suddenly, the robber's face twisted into a grimace of fear. His mouth twisted as if he had seen something terrible. In the next moment, a powerful blow landed in the face. It was twisted. The robber did not have time to react and was shocked. The savior of our hero was extremely quick and accurate in her blows. Everyone was amazed at this speed. The girl's face was furious with rage and she warned the enemies not to insult his beloved little brother Xiaoyu. One of the robbers was lying unconscious and did not understand what was happening around him. The other was frightened and did not know what to do, because without his leader he was nothing. The robber rushed to attack the girl, shouting various insults. Suddenly he saw the girl's face. Serious and at the same time beautifully refined. It radiated anger, but was so cute. Bishaka thought that he had fallen in love. This is the first time he has experienced such a feeling and abruptly stopped his attack. He didn't want to fight now. Xiaoyu called out to Mo Wenru, because the girl was ready to destroy the robbers. Suddenly she softened and sweetly turned to our hero. There was no trace of his former anger. She asked to wait a second. Suddenly a new car arrived. Lin got out of the car Yaju with his bodyguard. He was gigantic and perfectly complemented the image of the domineering woman who was his employer. She asked if her fiancé had any problems. Suddenly, the robber shouted that he did not know that Xiaoyu are her future fiancé. And began to ask for mercy. The woman called Arnold and asked him to deal with the rascals so that they would no longer cause problems for anyone, especially our hero. He easily picked up two robbers and began to carry them out of the yard. The security guard was huge against the background of the two boys. Lin Yaju walked over to Xiaoyu and said that she invites him on a date and wants to see him next to her. Mo Wenru was stunned by this phrase and began to rage. She asked for what purpose a woman wants to invite a guy on a date. The woman replied that they were engaged and it was perfectly normal for her to want to date Sia together. The girl was indignant, because she began to be jealous. Lin Yaju asked the girl to calm down because she looks funny. And she also added that everything is fine, because our hero has not yet chosen a bride among the 5 marriage contracts. The girl said that he was really undecided, but she was not going to force him to choose her. He must make his own choice. And also added that Lin Yaju looks like he has plans for Xiaoyu. The woman came even closer to our hero. She touched our hero's face and said that she is asking him out, but he can refuse at any moment. Xiaoyu said that he is blind and crippled, and therefore there is no reason to refuse kindness, so he is ready to meet. And also turned to Mo Wenru and said that he would have answered exactly the same if she had asked him out first. She was ashamed and said that she was not asking him for anything, but just wanted to be near him and that would be quite enough. Our hero started walking, turned around and spoke to Mo Wenru. He said that he has memories with her when they were little and those moments are very warm to his heart, so he is glad that she is with him. But most of them are lost, so he would like the girl to somehow remind him of the past. She opened her eyes wide and agreed. Lin Yaju asked our hero to speed up. Mo Wenru exclaimed that she is ready to get engaged at any moment, because she has known our hero since she was 10 years old. Xiaoyu smiled and went to the car. The weather was perfect for a date, the sun was shining, it was warm and there was a light breeze. She sat Xia down and said that Mo Wenru is very good and she would like to have her as a sister. He agreed and said that it's indeed an advantage, otherwise the saving damsel in distress today. And also added that that's not quite right, it should be saving hero in distress would have been Miss Lin. Lin replied that as long as little mister is okay, it makes no difference whether it's Lin or Miss Mo. She looked at our hero. Xiaoyu smiled at the fact that those robbers were Ms. Lin's people. He could never think of it. After all, it is very strange that they came to collect tribute at the exact moment when Ms. Lin appeared. He smiled again. The woman picked up speed and listened to what the boy was saying. Suddenly she looked at him with maddened eyes. In her hands was something that was impossible to see in the shadows. A fraction of a second and she already swung the knife, the speed was crazy, she was approaching the throat of our hero. Xiaoyu sat motionless. Not a muscle on his face moved. He asked what the woman was doing, because it was very strange. He said that he felt something strange around him and asked to explain what was happening. The woman looked at him and became as graceful and cute as before. She apologized and explained that she just wanted to check if Xia was real or blind or just pretending. Now everything became clear to her. Our hero asked if they could continue dating or if there would be any more checks for him. The woman assured that in the future everything will be fine and she found out everything. She radiated calmness. She added that now she likes him even more and now she is even more interested in why her father decided to conclude such a marriage contract. Now she personally saw who Xia really is. Xiaoyu wondered why she drives barefoot, because no one does that. Lin said she liked everything about the boy and they moved on. The next car drove up to our hero's yard. It was a Mukar Linger. __. She went out and called him. She said that it's time to finally bury my grandfather's coffin, because a lot of time has already passed. Suddenly she realized that no one was there and fell silent. Saw only Mo Wenru. The girl was standing and cleaning the yard when Mu arrived. Linger. __. She asked where the blind boy had gone. The actress got angry and said that she immediately thought that she is not as simple as she seems. And the moment she said she wouldn't let the blind man stay with her, Mo Wenru made a lightning attack on the actress. The girl was scared to death when Mo's hand Wenru found herself at the throat. Her eyes narrowed, she was not ready for this. Mo Wenru once again threatened the actress and said that she will not play with her anymore. The girl was surprised and said that she is not a good person. Mo Wenru said that Xia has 5 brides and only he will choose whom to marry. And she also added that she does not consider herself the best candidate for marriage. She turned and walked away. Mo Wenru remained standing immersed in her thoughts and was not going to back down from her philosophy. And at the same time, she was ready to attack the actress. She kept a small knife with her, which, in the end, fortunately did not come in handy. They brought the boy to a big house that everyone could envy. That was the final point of the journey. Lin said that everyone knew about Grandpa Xie's skills and talents. Thanks to them, one old man was able to heal and forget about the disease. Thanks to his grandfather, the man is still alive. The boy said that, unfortunately, his grandfather's skills were not passed on to him, so he cannot boast of the same talents. The butler was already waiting for them in the yard. They looked elegant and gallant. The butler said that the host was glad to see her and was waiting for her at the reception. The man's voice was balanced and good. The woman introduced our hero and spoke briefly about him. And she asked if the host could accept her just now. And then she added that they can be received out of turn, because they are very welcome guests. The butler remained silent and said that he would try to come to an agreement now. After waiting a little, they went to meet the owner of the manor. Literally at the same second, the mind of our hero again heard the voice of the creature that attacked him. The creature warned that there was something dangerous ahead, another spirit. The creature said that this creature must be eaten because human food makes it weaker and weaker. The guy cut short saying that this is cannibalism and he will not do such a thing. He does not look like his companion. The girl stopped and asked what happened, whether our hero felt anything. After all, it seemed to her that he had changed a little since he got out of the car. The guy said that Lin was wrong and everything is fine, so you can continue going to the house. The men gladly accepted them, immediately began to offer to sit down, said that they would soon bring something delicious. His name was Yu Tianfeng. Immediately a servant appeared with a tray, and the girl said that she had brought Xiaoyu, so that the men could see him, because he is sick. But it is clear that he is in a good mood and does not look like a sick person. The man was happy, because he finally saw the bridegroom, whom Yaju had been talking about for so long. And he said that he was happy because she was finally ready to show him the bridegroom. The boy said that although he is blind, he feels well that Yu Tianfeng does not want to see him at home, because he has already felt similar feelings more than once. The men grimaced, and Yaju calmly watched their dialogue. Yu Tianfeng said that our hero is mistaken and it's all fiction, because you can't treat guests like that. Our hero felt someone behind him. Suddenly, a hand touched the sofa a few centimeters away from Xiaoyu. The girl approached them and said that the boy was right after all, because her grandfather appointed Yaju a woman for her. And therefore, the guy is absolutely not suitable for her. The girl was quite courageous, had short hair and inspired a certain fear in front of her, because she looked strong. Her name was Li Qing. Instead, the man asked for Li Qing to be well-mannered and not to scatter such phrases. And he added that no one can decide for Yaju herself, because it is not established in their family. The girl did not understand how a blind person could be worthy of Yaju. Yaju asked the girl to calm down. Then she suddenly became serious and said that in terms of the family line, she is Qing's aunt, and therefore has more rights. And she warned us not to call our hero blind again, because it could end badly for her. Li Qing was not kidding and could not understand how Yaju could agree to this marriage contract. The girl could not calm down and thought that she was being deceived by Xie. Somewhere you are not what you seem. Again, a voice appeared in our hero's head, telling him to kill the pink-haired girl, because she is a threat. He tried in every way to sway our hero to his side. Xiaoyu again firmly replied that he would not do this, because they are of the same species and it would be very wrong. The creature again began to convince our hero of this. He called it a trifle that they are of the same species. Suddenly Xiaoyu activated and could not understand whether after one use of the force this creature would affect him so much. Yaju was not jokingly worried about the condition of our hero. The creature crawled deeper and deeper inside our hero, motivating it by the fact that, above all, it is the power of Xie himself so the more he resists, the more painful it will be to accept this power. More and more it penetrated into every cell of his body, tried to merge with him. Our hero broke down, began to throw himself from side to side, trying to free himself from the creature's grip. And after a few seconds, he fell down, losing strength. The struggle within himself very quickly exhausted him. Qing asked if Yaju would want to break the marriage contract after this event, because it looked very strange. Instead, the girl said that if it was Qing's fault, because her words could have hurt our hero, then she would be very unlucky. Yaju's look was actually very serious and did not look like an ordinary joke, so it was necessary to listen. Qing she could not understand how it happened that once the girl did not refuse her and they concluded a contract, and now this is what happened, she brought a cripple whom she wants to marry. The men said that she has been in the gray area since she was a child. After her boss passed away, she took on the responsibilities of the gang. After turning the tide, she's able to hide and sit firmly in the background because she resorts to every possible means. He looked at his reflection in the broken glass and water, and said that for Yaju there is no emotion. For her, every person is just a chess piece and nothing more. Everything is just a chess game for her. The girl did not understand how this could be, because the family has done so much for her and she cannot simply take and forget about them as ordinary people. The men said that after playing the eagle for all his life, how could her grandpa be pecked on by an eagle? Yaju took Sia out to a quiet place under the freeway to come to your senses a little. She asked if he was tired of being in his body. The guy said that everything is fine and that this problem has been with him for a long time, so he is already used to it. Also, our hero added that his grandfather would not like a girl like Ms. Lin. She agreed, but said that Sia's opinion was most important not his grandfather, and therefore she is waiting for her. She wanted to explain everything to him well once again, but did not finish her conversation. Mukar burst into them linger. Yaju's eyes became big from surprise. The girl ran out of the car and shouted, "What are they two doing here in the middle of the day?" She was quickly approaching them. Yaju scornfully asked what celebrities do among ordinary people on weekdays. To which Mu replied that it would be fair to divide the time between all the girls who had a marriage contract between them. Over the noise of the cars, no one could overhear their conversation. Suddenly one of the trucks changed its course. The one who was behind the wheel was picking up speed with great force. The creature abruptly turned the steering wheel to the side of the road. In a fraction of a second, our hero saw it and became alert. A multi-ton truck veered off the road and began to fall on top of the girls along with Xiaoyu. They looked at each other in surprise, but did not have time to react to the situation. But not our hero. He immediately rushed to the girls with a frantic speed. The monster behind the wheel had no emotion whatsoever. He had only one goal: to kill everyone. He hit with great force, nearby waters and pieces of earth flew in all directions. In the next moment, the truck was already plunging into the water and was no longer a danger. Our hero saved the girls and prevented a tragedy. The girls lost consciousness from the shock and did not have time to notice or understand anything, but Xiaoyu sat and thought what could happen. He looked at the body that was slowly disappearing under the sun and made his guesses. The creature inside the boy said that an attempt on his life was an insult. He also added that from the very beginning he felt that something was following them from the house itself. The boy asked the creature to disappear, because he had no need for it. The monster lashed out at him and said that this is impossible, because without protection our hero will not last even 5 minutes. He was conducting his conversation and said that Xiaoyu has a blessing, and therefore it is forever, and also advised to pay less attention to people. The boy said that the creature was very loud and asked to be quieter. Acolyte listened to report _ President said that reporting, the presidents from the other regions will attend the Celestial Master Conference in half a month, and there are no problems. The boy decided to clarify about the spirits that came to Earth last night. The president ordered him to keep quiet, because obviously the incident is over and there won't be any more problems, so everything is fine. It's just that the compass failed that day, it won't happen again. The men stood gloomily and thought about the incident. The woman asked why he came personally for such a trifle, because nothing terrible happened. I asked why he was so nervous. The men apologized for it. The woman remained silent and did not answer anything to this. She said that even though such a number of spirits only appear once every few hundred years, there is no need to fuss over it. And she said that the annual conference, for which it is worth preparing, is much more important. And asked if there was anything new about her brother. The men reported that Celestial Master Xia has been in hiding for years and there is no news of him. However, rumors began to spread that he had left our world forever. The woman asked if it was true. She said that her brother used to be very powerful and qualified to become the strongest among all. She added that but after Master died, senior brother left without saying goodbye, leaving them by ourselves and leaving a vacant position in the current Celestial Masters Conference. She repeated that she hoped he was truly dead. The woman looked at the moon and asked how preparations for the conference were going, because this is the most important event of recent times. The men replied that everything was going according to plan. All instructions were strictly followed and there is no reason to worry. He looked at the woman and waited for further orders. Won't start in half a month. Celestial Master Conference. Meanwhile, those who had not been remembered for a long time rose from the depths of the earth. Meanwhile, the Li residence was very noisy. There were sounds coming from the house that made it a little creepy. Ching was doing her favorite thing, singing. She had a recording studio, so she could make music at home. Suddenly she stopped singing because something went wrong. She hit the equipment and screamed that the sound was not working again, and the old greedy grandfather did not want to buy her new equipment and she was fed up with it. The girl came out at the moment when the butler approached the owner of the house and announced that Xiaoyu came to them. She wondered what the blind boy had forgotten. The men grimaced, but had no choice and had to accept the boy. Tea was already on the table. Xiaoyu said that Ms. Lin asked him to come to the meeting again and he couldn't refuse. The man asked if she had come with him. Yaju's whereabouts. Yu Tianfeng laughed and said that of course he was worried because Ms. Lin was his old friend, and among other things, they had set up a business together, so it was customary for them to take care of each other. Xiaoyu said that he understands everything and Mrs. Lin does the same for her husband. Therefore, she sent a boy to examine the gentleman and measure his pulse in order to be sure of his health. Everyone was surprised that Xiaoyu knew medicine. Dvoretsky said that it will burden our hero. Use hand anyway. Tianfeng. He allowed it to happen. The floating pulse is strong and the sinking pulse is weak. Everything is as our hero thought. This alarmed him. The man asked what happened, because the boy made an unpleasant face, as if something terrible had happened. Yu Tianfeng said that the elderly often have health problems. The guy replied that he had just divined and the hexagram showed that although he has a few minor problems, the man's condition is quite stable and strong, there are no problems to worry about. However, disaster awaits him in the distant future. After which the face of Yu Tianfeng has changed. He was not happy about this turn of events. He whispered the boy's words softly. Suddenly he laughed out loud and said that he didn't care about any calamities. For so many years in business, he has survived any calamity and is not afraid of anything. As long as his health is good, any trouble will avoid him. The guy smiled and said that if so, he advises you to just move less and drink more vitamins and replenish your qi. At this the boy said goodbye and left. Yu Tianfeng asked the butler to escort the guest. And he himself stood and watched the door of the house close. Yu Tianfeng was very angry. His face twisted and he whispered that spirits were not to be trusted in business. While Xiaoyu walked to the exit, the butler told him about the garden. The garden was full of flowers and was the pride of Yu Tianfeng, because he invested a lot of money and effort in it. The guy asked why he was the only one working there. The servant said that the master did not like noise and did not want to spend on extra servants. Xiaoyu couldn't understand why such a rich man wouldn't want to spend a little money on a few servants. The butler said that he does not know the thoughts and decisions of his master, so we have what we have. Suddenly the boy caught on a stone and began to fall. The butler reacted and caught the young gentleman. I asked him to be more careful in the future, because next time he might not make it. The guy thanked him and said it was very close to falling. The butler said that he was to blame for this, because he neglected him. Xiaoyu noted the butler's professionalism and asked where he was from. The servant thanked him and said he was from Dianzhou. The boy caught the servant and said that this place is famous for a technique that allows you to summon and control evil spirits. And I would like to know more about it. The servant immediately said that he did not quite understand what was being said. Our hero showed the ring, which he was able to take from the butler. He screamed out of surprise and asked if our hero fell on purpose to take the ring. He let the ring go away from him. Xiaoyu said that the sorcerers of Dianzhou have a technique that can turn a soul into a ghost servant, and that ghost servant can change the fate of the ghost master. And this ghost servant will suck the yang energy of the ghost master day and night until the living person becomes a walking dead, and ever since you stepped into this mansion for the first time, he felt a strong evil spirit. Then he said that the old man obviously has a serious illness, but now he is in good health. Combined with his pulse, it is certain that he has been raising ghost servants for at least 2 to 3 years, and not to mention his grandson, who is ignorant and full of energy. It's like letting a ghost put on human skin. And at the end he said that the thing of the same origin that protects you from being corroded by Yin and evil, but makes the people in this house full of Yin. The butler fell silent and in the end could only say that it was the ring of his late wife. He could not understand how the ring could become a strong resettlement. Xiaoyu said that it was the butler who killed his wife. Turned her into a ghost maid who was supposed to kill Lin Yaju. The butler broke down and shouted that he had not killed his wife. He loved her very much and could not do such a thing. The boy continued to say that if it weren't for the butler, the owner would have died a long time ago. Thanks to the butler, the master has the power to do evil deeds. The servant began to back away and say that he was not guilty of anything. The guy said that his wife had been around for many years and helped to work, and after her death, the servant turned her into a ghost and did not give her the opportunity to reincarnate. Did he really love his wife with such a wicked heart? Suddenly, in a fit of rage, the butler grabbed Xiaoyu by the shoulders and pressed against the bushes. He was beside himself with anger, and the boy's face remained as calm as before. He got as close as possible to the boy's face and said that he did not kill her and never wanted to hurt his wife. Pete walked away, and the butler finally admitted that it was all his master's fault and began to tell the story. His family served as butlers for generations. And he learned business as a small child. He was proud of his appointment. The previous owners were very kind and had a big heart and never did harm to the butler or other people. Unlike the one he started serving. Although the butler always followed the words of his father, that it is necessary to simply fulfill one's duty and forget about everything that is happening around. In the end, one fine day the servant found the love of his life. She was beautiful, kind and infinitely beautiful. They quickly got married and began to live together. These were the happiest moments of his life. It was so good to feel my kindred soul next to me. However, happiness did not last long. 5 years later, the owner fired all the cleaning ladies and all the servants, leaving only the butler and his wife. He wanted to save money because he had big problems with his business. However, a huge amount of work could not prevent them from loving each other and finding time to be together. The owner promised that he would let him retire after 1 more year on the job. However, the owner postponed this moment and there was less and less time to see his wife. She had a very difficult life and worked constantly. Even when she was sick, no one wanted to help or replace her. The wife suffered and was tired from constant work. And once the butler asked the master for money for medicine for his wife, but he refused. He will never forget his hideous face, which was happy because they were suffering and the woman was in poor health. The servant had no choice but to return home to his wife in the middle of the night to help her somehow. And as soon as he was at the threshold of the house, happiness overtook him, because he would be able to see his beloved woman again. However, when he opened the door, the smile was replaced by animal terror. What he saw shocked him. His beloved woman died. He rushed to her, but he knew very well that it was already too late. Xiaoyu listened to the story and concluded that then butler refined her into a ghost and recommended her to the old man. On the surface it seemed to help him change his luck, but in fact, he wanted the ghost to drain his energy. Tears streamed down the butler's face. He wanted the owner to pay for abusing his family. He regretted that his family had served his family for generations. He called him a cold-blooded bastard. The boy was silent and just listened. Butler said it was all the woman's idea. This piqued Xia's interest. He asked what kind of woman the butler was talking about. He said that he wanted to bury his wife, but a woman appeared suddenly and said that his wife had resentments, and that she had a way to help him. It's only by refining his wife into a ghost servant, absorbing other people's energy and weakening her resentments that she can finally reincarnate. It just so happened that the old master was seriously ill at that time, so the butler gave him the technique of subduing ghosts as a means of strengthening his body and changing his luck. Dvoretsky said that he thought that this matter would go on smoothly, letting that bastard die slowly, so that his wife could be saved, but he doesn't expect that bastard to make her assassinate Lin Yaju. He burst into tears. Tears flowed like a river. Xiaoyu said that everything is over, no one will be able to help his wife and she should accept it. The only thing our hero could do was to dispel her soul so that she would no longer suffer in this world and find peace. After death, you should not have any connection with the world of the living, because after that you can wander forever between the worlds. To be neither here nor there. The boy confirmed that the master had indeed committed a lot of evil against both the butler and Lin Yaju. There are morals and laws that should not be broken, because if you do, it will be bad for everyone. Xiaoyu said that he only came here to deal with demons as his grandfather once taught him. Meanwhile, in the hospital, everyone remembered the incident with the truck. Mu was the first to come to mind. Linger. __. She began to remember more and more what happened. She remembered how she was under the overpass and remembered that she was not alone. Suddenly she remembered that she was there with a boy. And now she was interested in only one thing. She wanted to know how he was there and if he was still alive.